Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you are with us again tonight on a Tuesday night. This is Halloween night, October the 31st. And this is the world's most dangerous podcast. We call it Straight Shooting with Stevie Ray. And I am your host, Stevie Ray. I'm glad everybody can join us tonight live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Twitch. That is how we do it. Now, like I told you guys last night, and I told you guys last week, hey, Queen, what's up? That we have a special guest coming on tonight. Sonny won't be with us tonight, but Sonny will be back next week. We have a special guest tonight. So that is why I'm very, very excited. And I'm glad you guys are riding along on the big train like we always do on Tuesday night. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, our special guest is Mr. James H. Longmore. I want you guys to go look him up. What's up, Punisher? Punisher, I had one of your English friends on the show last night. Did you hear him? Yeah. But I'll get to you about that in a minute. I'm introducing the guest right now. But Mr. Longmore will be here, and he's going to talk about a few things as it pertains to some of the books he's written. And, man, you got to see some of the titles of this book. I want you guys to go out there, and I want you guys to look up Mr. James H. Longmore. I want you to look him up and look at some of his work. Y'all know how we do it. We show everybody love on this show because on this show, you never know what the person might be doing when they show up. But you'll know when it's over. Like I always say, you'll know when it's over. You dig it? Now, Punisher, what were you saying? I can't remember his name, Punisher. What's up, Matthew? What's up, Chaz Telly? I can't remember his name, but I had to tell him about his boy. I had to tell him about his boy that was sitting down on this you-know-what this past weekend. But I'll get to you about that in a moment. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little later in the show, we'll talk a little sports. But be it as it may, excuse me, guys, it's getting kind of cool down here in Houston where I reside. And I don't know if I got the sniffles or what, man, but kind of came on me suddenly today. But even though wasn't too cool, but you know how it is, man. When it's been extremely hot, now we're getting a little cool weather. I guess I got a little sniffles, but be it as it may, hey, man, we're going to get through this. But hey, man, my special guest out there, Mr. James H. Longmore, he's waiting in the guest room. And let's bring him out right now so we can chop it up with him. And I want you guys to listen closely. Listen closely. So if you have any questions, put them up on the screen, and I will transfer them over to our guest. How about that? Real cool. An author, yes. So let's go to the green room now and see if he's out there. There he is. Mr. Longmore, how's it going, man? Stevie Ray.
Hey, Ray. I'm all good, Stevie. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. We appreciate you coming on the show tonight and giving us a few minutes of your time to talk about what you do as an author, what you do for a living on this glorious Halloween night, man.
It is my favorite night of the year, obviously. So,
really?
Oh yeah, all the scary stuff. We love all the scary stuff. It's funny you were saying, I've been feeling a bit sniffly today because obviously I'm in Houston as well. Okay. And the temperature's just dropped like that. Right. And I've been feeling it, just feeling a bit, I'm not right. And then, because it's going to be cold this week. And then I think by the weekend, it's going to be in the 90s again. So,
so
welcome to Houston. And as you can tell by the accent, I'm not from here originally. So,
don't tell me we got another Englishman.
Absolutely, you have, yes.
Oh man, I had an Englishman on the show last night.
There's a lot of us about. actually.
But hey, you know, I was introduced to you through some colleagues of mine over at PWE Television. And they, sent me some of your stuff about who you were and what you're doing. And we agreed, hey, man, I got to get somebody like that on the show because, see, myself, Stevie Ray, I grew up, a comic book guy. And I love the superhero comic books, but I also love the horror comic books. And I was also a movie horror guy. To this day, I still like watching the old 1950s, 40s type movies.
Yeah.
I still love them to this day. And I got access to them today on the push of a button, man. So with that being said, that was one reason I was so excited about you coming on. But tell us about where did this come from, something like this in your head to write these kind of books, man? What does that come from?
I get asked that a lot. It's just I've always had a fascination from being a very small child with scary stuff and ghosts and monsters and the supernatural, all that sort of thing. I can't answer the question. It's just something that's been in me from the day I was born. I think my parents used to despair. They used to try to get me to read literally anything but, that romance or cowboy novel or whatever. I mean, I went through a period of reading a lot of science fiction as a kid, which I like a bit of sci-fi, but I always came back to horror, always, and when I sort of went from like the kids horror stuff, sort of back in the 70s, I remember it well. Because I've been again anything in the school library or the local. Back in the day when kids used to go to the library, I would always be looking at the horror stuff, the scary stuff, and a lot of the kids, scary stories for kids sort of thing. And then one day somebody brought in this is at middle school. An older kid brought in a copy of The Rats by James Herbert. A great British author, sadly passed away now. Often lauded as the father of splatterpunk, which is at the extreme gory sort of horror. And I borrowed that, and that changed my life. I mean, that was like my first taste of grown-up horror. And it was brutal, it was visceral, bearing in mind by that age I'd read Dracula, I read Frankenstein, I read the classics. Excuse me. But yeah, that is just this is I thought this is the sort of stuff that I want to write, that it's it's literally stomach churning and frightening and gruesome and absolute, and I loved it. I was hooked on grown-up horror from that moment on.
You know something? I'm just fascinated with people like yourself that's got this, I don't know, these kind of things running around in your brain, and you got to get them out in some way, shape, or form. You got to get them out. But I guess that's just a talent that you're born with, that you can create these alternative worlds within your mind and then put them out there for people to read, or put them out there for people to see them in the movie, so on and so forth. Would that be a direct description of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I mean, obviously, as well as being an author, I also run my own independent publishing company. Obviously, horror. So I mix in circles with a lot of writers, a lot of creative people, obviously a lot of horror writers. And it took me a lot of years. I mean, up until when I really got into this about 10, 12 years ago, that I didn't realize that not everybody thinks in the same way that I do. And a lot of writers think in the same way. And it's not just about the horror thing. I personally, I think in pictures, in images.
Right.
And a lot of people have said, so when I'm writing, I'm literally just describing the pictures in my head. It's that simple. Yeah, and a lot of people have said of my work, it's like reading a movie. But that is what I'm doing. It's playing in my head like a movie, and I'm just writing it down, whether it's the scenes or the dialogue or whatever, and it's just there. And yeah, a lot of us say, whether again, no matter what kind of writer you are, you know, we have to write this stuff to get it, as you say, to get it out of our heads. Otherwise, it would stay in there. And I think it would drive us crazy. And it's funny thing is, a lot of people think that, you know, certainly horror writers, that we are sinister, dark, horrible, evil people. And so that's my dog's backside in the background there.
I'm early too.
The last time I did one of these, it was one of my other dogs started licking himself in the background, which was so embarrassing. I was mortified. You know, we find horror writers, we are the nicest, most well balanced bunch of people you could ever meet, because all that dark stuff, the scary darkness is out. Right. We get it out. It's written down. It's out of there. So you know, we're a great bunch of people, I have to say. Well, and I am biased, obviously. You know.
Well, I was. You know, you kind of like took one of the questions I had that I was going to ask you. You kind of answered it while you were answering that one, but I've always, like I said, artistic people like yourself, it's sometimes you can look at a horror movie, and tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. Let's say one of your books was made into a movie. Reading that book would be, I'm reading it and I'm putting the pictures together in my mind as to how you are describing it in a book. Then let's say they make a movie from that book, and you'll see like based on the novel by James H. Longmore. And I think, how do they take those images from a book, put them in a movie? But then I'm like, it's really not doing us justice, because you don't get the real feeling of the author by watching the movie. Would I be right about that? Because you can only put so much in an hour and 50 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. Plus, as well, you have to think about it. You know, by the time a book becomes a movie, and you're sat with your bucket of popcorn and your soda, sat watching it. And I still love going to movies, I have to say. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Right. By the time you obviously, it's gone from the book, it's been adapted from the book into a screenplay, usually by screenwriters. I mean, I've done some screenwriting myself.
Okay.
So that's that level of translation. Then it's interpreted by the director.
Right.
And then the actors will interpret the characters. So you've got about 4 levels of separation between what was in the author's head and what is on the screen. And I know I've spoken I've spoken to, and I know authors who've had their movies adapted. I'm actually, funnily enough, looking at I'm in talks to have one of my books adapted into a movie. And they all say, to varying degrees, it's been a bit of a disappointment. It depends on how much involvement the author has. Certainly if it's an independent movie, if I get mine made, I'm going to insist that I have a lot of involvement in the script writing process, so it can be as close to my vision. But it's one of those things, you know. It's by the time the studios get hold of it, and it's who controls the money controls the film. If they say, you know, oh yeah, Jim, yeah, we're going to put a dinosaur in this or a UFO, there's nothing you can do.
Well, let me ask you. Yeah, there's nothing you can do, and you try to explain that to people sometimes, and they just don't get it. Some people are so movie oriented, you know, they just can't get what's in an author's head. But another thing I want to ask you about, as far as the fans these days, I don't know if you attend the Comic-Cons and things of that nature, or do they have specific things for authors like yourself that do horror type books? The fans of yesterday, seems like to me, I don't know, I would like for you to tell me this. Fans of yesterday seem like they really appreciated the horror guys like yourself way more than what we see today. What would you say to that?
I would agree. I mean, horror now. Again, I'm talking mainly movies. I mean, I guess books as well. We'll pick on books.
Right.
I mean, it is as an author and as a publisher. Unless you are Stephen King or Dean Koontz or Clive Barker, one of the big boys.
Right.
It is virtually impossible to get your book on the shelves at Barnes and Noble, for example. Independent bookstores. I was a book. We launched some of our books on Saturday. Brazos Books here in Houston. Great. A lot of independent bookstores are great at supporting independent authors and independent publishers.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. So certainly, as far as books are concerned, again, people they want Stephen King. They want the same. They want the same. They know it's a Stephen King, and I love Stephen King. Big fan. Great guy. Great author. But you know what you're going to get. And you'll find. I would say any horror fans listening in, go out, look for independent horror. Look for some of these new up and coming horror authors, because that's where the real creativity is, because they're not afraid to step out of the boundaries. Let's do something different. And obviously I read a lot of good stuff. A lot of my stuff, unless it's specifically different, I won't write it, because for me it's got to. I'm not just going to rewrite Salem's Lot or rewrite it or rewrite. You know what I mean? Because it sells, and zombies sell, but who wants to read another zombie book?
Well, I think I grew up on real zombies. Not these zombies today, okay? I'm
the George Romero zombies. No, they're proper zombies. Yes,
come on,
absolutely.
Man. Out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay? Yeah, I mean, some of these, we're kind of getting off topic here, but this is what I like about having guests like you on. We can be all over the place and it's still entertaining to me. Okay. The real zombies. You're a horror guy. And the zombies that they're putting out there nowadays, I don't like those zombies, man. I don't like those zombies. A zombie is, like you said, a George Romero type zombie. Don't make the zombie a good guy. He's always a bad guy, man. Ain't no such thing as a good zombie.
Yeah, it's the fast zombies as well. This is in recent years that they've had them running and being, and then they have this. That they're starting to become intelligent. Well, really, no, because you've got to think about it practically. They are decaying corpses just walking around.
Right.
If anything, they're going to get slow. I mean, The Walking Dead did it. I mean, to be fair, they stretched it out far too long. But The Walking Dead did it because through each season, the zombies were more decrepit, were more rotted, were less mobile. That's in real life how it would happen.
Right.
They wouldn't suddenly become quicker and more intelligent. Just working in the post office. I mean, it's just like no, don't do that. But again, I guess what they're trying to do is to take a well-worn trope, which is zombies, and they've done it. We think about it. They've done it with vampires. They've done it with sort of Frankenstein sort of stuff. They do it with each of these werewolves. They have to try and make it different. So credit to them. And to be fair, some of the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
I actually, they had fast zombies, and I actually did enjoy it. Not as good as the original.
Right.
And I had the pleasure of seeing the original up on the big screen. This is how old I am. On the big screen when it came out back in
I remember
whatever, 78, I think it was. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely blew my mind, that movie.
Yeah, I just got out of high school when that movie came out, man, and I seen it at a drive-in.
Oh, cool! Now then, there you go.
I seen it at a drive-in. There you go. Still remember it, man. But I just want to know how you felt about that. That's something I've never talked about on the show, but I've talked about it in my personal life with different friends of mine. How I stomp on today's what they call horror. When I was a kid, man, I'm afraid, man. I'm afraid. Scenes make you afraid. That's what I like. But then again, back in those days also, you didn't know all the behind the scenes stuff like you know now.
Mm-hmm.
And you wasn't trying to get the whole audience. You were just trying to get that audience. So do you think it's because nowadays they civilize so much stuff because they're trying to attract a broader audience?
I think yes. I think you maybe hit the nail on the head there, Stevie. You know, you've got the Blumhouse movies.
Right.
You know, the Nun and the Conjuring, and there's that whole thing, and they're not. I sit and watch. I've been sitting and watching them with my daughter. She's 14 now, and I've been watching them with her since she was like 7 or 8.
Right.
Because that was the age I started. And yeah, go for it. You know, she. And they just seem to get less frightening. And yet, funnily enough, in honor of William Peter Blatty, who sadly died recently, I'm going to watch The Exorcist again. And that movie still scared the crap out of me. It's still, it just gets you. There's something, because again, there's no CGI. It's strong acting. It's great script writing. It's atmospheric. It's, and even said that just to refer back to what we discussed a little while ago. You know, the book. I don't know if you've read the book.
I haven't.
The book, The Exorcist. Read it. The Exorcist book is more disturbing than the movie. And the movie is great. The movie is a classic. The movie is perfect. There's been a lot of talk about this new Exorcist movie, which again I haven't seen. And to be fair, I don't think I want to. Because I'd rather just watch the original again, you know.
I'm like that. I'll be like that till I leave this earth. The originals, you know, when they update stuff, sometimes I just can't take it.
I have yet to see an update, a reboot, a reimagine, whatever they call it, a rehash, a rehash. I've yet to see one that has come anywhere most of them are terrible, I have to say, that has come anywhere close to the original. Now, if you want good, you know, so good horror that sort of reflects the sort of horror that we, and again I'm talking movies and I guess books as well, looks to the independent movies. There's been some really good ones like the Ritual and The Autopsy of Jane Doe and Hereditary, and that are independently produced. And they're not afraid to try different things, to tackle different subjects and do something original. Same with the books, you know, look into the independent, like, you know, Hellbound Books, my company. Look at hellboundbooks.com and look for some good original independent horror, because that's where you'll find, you know, the new stuff, the original stuff. You know, the new twist on werewolves and vampires and zombies, that sort of thing. Yeah, because
go ahead.
I was just going to say, because the mainstream now is just, it is business. You know, you've got to understand that Hollywood and the publishing world, TV, it's about making money. It's not about entertaining the audience. It's about getting people in the theater, selling it to streaming, making money. So if they know, you know, one movie, like we'll pick up the Saw movies. You know, Saw movie, first one, fantastic. I just watched Saw 10, and it was, but I actually enjoyed the, because I just find them inventive. I like the kills and that. It's just very, it's good. It's a good bit of, it's like you say, it's an hour and 50 minutes of mindless fun. But yeah, so they know Saw 1 made it, that, you know, that was a surprise. So Saw 2 made this. So and it's, as long as people are buying tickets and downloading it on streaming, they will keep churning them out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the world is coming to, man. In every genre that we're talking about, as far as entertainment is concerned, I think. And to me, it just takes the real, it takes the real fun out of what horror and gore. You know, you don't even hear that word anymore. Have you noticed that? You don't even hear the word gore anymore.
No, you do not. No.
They've taken that out of the lexicon. You know why?
Yeah.
It's too offensive. But that's what I came up on. Gore. That's what I want.
the movies of the horror movies of the 80s, some of these classics, the video nasties, the ones from Italy, and they were great. And a lot of the gore effects, they were pretty hokey. I mean, you knew it was fake and obvious, and sometimes even the blood would be the wrong color. Like, who doesn't know what color blood is, really? But they were great.
Some of those guys were working on a budget, though, man. A real low budget.
Oh, some of them were just scraped together on, because when with the advent of VHS, I mean, that was the big revolution.
Right.
So everybody could suddenly have any movie in their living room, and
true.
they were just churning these straight to VHS movies out by the week and by the day, just endless. And there'd be you remember the old video stores, the little corner store. You used to go before Blockbuster, before all of that. You'd go and it was a grocery store, and they'd have a little section of videos, and most of them were all these horror movies. Yeah, and I used to love those.
I loved it.
Yeah,
you see something like, what is this? And the cover.
Yeah,
the cover is what got you.
Yeah, you would rent it just on the basis of the cover. Yeah.
Then you take it home and look at it, and it was like garbage. But that
they were all they were all most. To be fair, I mean, you'd watch maybe 10, and out of the 10, there'd be 2 that were pretty good, but the rest were just. But we used to love it, and it was like that badge of honor. Then at school the next day, you'd be telling your friends, and what this happened. Then his guts fell out, and he poked his, and they did all this, and the brains came, and all that. And that was the more gory the better. And like you say, you're quite right. Now, again, some of the independent stuff, they don't shy away from the gore as much. The mainstream stuff, it's just glossed over, and they try to rely on the jump scares,
right?
Which I like a jump scare. Don't get me wrong, a jump scare is good in a movie, but if that's all the movie is, it's like, fine, okay, you might, if you want that kind of thrill, go on a roller coaster. That'll give you, or drive around Houston. I mean, if you want to be truly scared, drive around Houston, people.
Okay, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we are here chopping it up with Mr. James H. Longmore, author of some of the best horror books that you guys can go out, look him up, go get some of his material, man, and check it out. But let me get back to asking you this. You said a few minutes ago that now you have an independent publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is your publishing company, did you start this publishing company to try to pinpoint people that do the same thing you do around the same subjects that you write about? Or are you just doing anything as far as books are concerned?
No, we've been going near almost 8 years now. Started it from scratch. Me and my business partner. Shout out to Christina, my business partner, who literally bullied me into doing it. And my main reason was my first couple of books that I had published with other publishers. Because now all my books are published with my company, but they were all over the place, and because I brought them all into my stable so I could control them better. I had some pretty bad experiences with a couple of independent publishers, and it left me feeling disappointed and deflated. And it must be what I want to do. I want to give authors, the opposite experience. I want them to have a good experience. I want to be as excited about their book being published as they were about writing it. And we made the decision, again, because it is my first love, we would stick with horror. Mm-hmm. We've recently expanded into noir, which is noir thrillers, which is dark, and it's the thing. I guess things like thinking like Silence of the Lambs and American Psycho. So it's psychological horror. It's dark. So we're never going to do romance and again I say sci-fi. We did actually do earlier this year an anthology of sci-fi horror. Mm-hmm. So it's not your Robert Heinlein sort of sci-fi. It's like Alien, which is great sci-fi horror, or Predator, that sort of thing. So that nice, because that's the beauty of horror is it encompasses literally every other genre. We've had horror. We can have horror romance, romantic horror, period piece horror. I mean, you name it, you can add horror to it.
Right.
And that was our objective. We would stick with horror. That is, stick with what we know, with what we're good at. We've attracted some phenomenal authors, and we're now, and it's a bit of it's a weird one for me, because we are now publishing some of the authors that I grew up reading, like Ramsey Campbell, for example, Graham Masterton, Guy N. Smith, Jack Ketchum. And that's kind of weird, because suddenly here we are editing their work and publishing it.
I think we've. Oh, there we go.
Are we still on? I can still see you.
Yeah. Can you see me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you see me?
I can. Okay. Yeah.
No, I was looking at the Facebook feed, but
right. Mm-hmm.
I'll go back to my other stuff here in a second. But what the reason I'm asking, because I'm actually writing a book right now.
Oh, fantastic!
Mm-hmm. And I was checking out the Facebook feed because I want to see what you look like on there, and it's a better picture. It's a better picture of you and I.
Well, that was that one. The one time they were shot by my professional photographer. So yeah, they're better. This is me on a Tuesday night,
So that's and you said you had some bad experiences. This is my first time working with a publishing company, and you said you had some bad experiences. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for the audience and myself, so maybe I can see something to look out for?
Yeah, one of my books, Flanagan, one of my early books, which is a psychological, psychosexual horror. Yeah, it was taken on. I was thrilled to bits. It was taken on by an independent publisher, and then they didn't do anything with it for at least a year, and then they started asking me to make some pretty big changes. Now, again, as an author, when you're working with a publisher, you have to be prepared for that, if they want to make change. But a lot of the change just seemed to didn't really make sense to me. And then they just dragged it on, and we got to 2 years. The contract was one of these where I said if they don't publish within 2 years, then the rights would come back to me. And I was just chasing them. Literally, we actually extended it by about 6 months, I think, because I was sort of that invested with these people. I thought, well, to start all over again would have been soul destroying. So I was like, okay, well, let's. And they finally pulled a finger out and brought it out, and then it was just like literally then right, it's published, and then they sent me copies of my book, and it was awful. It was the cover art was just something that they'd snatched off image stock site with not a lot of thought. It didn't really portray what the book was about. It was, and I have a person. I mean, again, you and I, it was a similar sort of generation, and we grew up on. The horror paperbacks were sort of. I mean, this is a quick plug for mine, but with this size, yeah, they were 5 inches by 8 inches, cream paper, pulpy. That's a horror paperback book. That's what I had in mind, and this came in white paper. It was 6 by 9, looked like a school book. So, and I was embarrassed to actually tell anyone, to be honest. I just awful. So there was that bad experience, and then the other one with another one of my novels. It turned out that the guy, the small publisher, he was less than, how can I put it? Not really straight up guy. He actually stole the cover art from the internet. I don't know where he got it from, but it was actually just robbed off the internet, which is obviously in breach of a lot of copyright laws. Yeah. And again, he just messed me about. He didn't edit it properly. So with Hellbound, we work with our authors. We only suggest changes if we feel it's really necessary. All the books get a thorough edit and proofread, and then it goes back to the author to check that everything we've done is correct. And again, a lot of it is just, correcting grammar and syntax and punctuation, that sort of thing. We work with them on the cover art. We work with some of the best cover art artists around. One of the guys we have worked with actually designed for Stephen King and Dean Koontz. We worked with another guy who actually designed our company logo, who's worked with Clive Barker, and some other great independent artists as well. We like to give new artists a chance as well. But the author, at each step, the author is involved. So they get, we say, what do you have in mind for your book cover? So we give them, we can get close to what because we want them to love their book. Because if they don't love their book, they will do what I did and they won't tell anyone. If they love it and they say, oh, the cover's wonderful, they see how the cover develops from the initial sketches to the finished article. And then, and even when we produce, because we produce all the books in audiobook, they're involved in choosing the narrator and they get to listen to it and say if there's any, mispronunciation. There you go, irony for you. Mispronunciations. I can't even say that tonight. What is wrong with me? So I think, long story short, is our authors are involved in the process of taking their work, their blood, sweat, and tears. As you know, if you're writing your book, it ain't easy. There's a lot of hours, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into that. So you need to be involved in that process.
I got a ghostwriter working with me.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got to go.
But it's still important to you that you ghostwrite. I mean, again, it's something I do. I do ghostwriting as well. It's important to you, and it's important to your ghostwriter, that your voice is maintained. That book is yours. It is your voice. It's not your story told by him. You know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you how I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is pretty much write down everything that's in my mind as to what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to convey. And then I'll send it to him. And he put it in writing, pretty much a author's type form, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in essence, he's just almost like my proofreader, if you will. And correct my diction, grammar, so on and so forth, and go from there.
Now, how is it going so far? Are you happy with what he's done so far?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, because some of the things I'm talking about, he's very, very, very familiar with, because he's written a couple of books about professional wrestling, actually. So he knows where I'm coming from mentally, if that makes sense.
It does, absolutely, yeah.
Because, I live in a world kind of like yourself of horror writing, horror book writing. I live in a world where I see stuff totally different than the ordinary person. So if I'm talking to you like you and I talking right now, if I'm talking to him, I don't have to explain it to him 15 times.
Yeah, he gets it. Yeah, that's good.
I might have to get it twice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it cuts out, it gets it. He gets it. So what I'm trying to put on paper is one thing. To make it into readable material is another. But I think I'm pretty good at it, though. I'm not that bad. I'm pretty good.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it.
Because what I'm writing about from a professional wrestler's outlook Nobody's ever done it. And that's
Right.
what intrigued the publishing company so much.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. So, how far along is it? I mean, when will be? Because obviously, I'm going to want a signed copy. You know.
I'm taking my time because, it's got to be right.
Yes,
it's got to be right. So with everything else I'm going on, everything else is other things that's going on in my life also. But I'm pretty excited.
Excited. So you should be. This is what I was saying. You know, it has to be a pleasurable experience for you. It has to be fun. It has to be something that you love, and it sounds like it's all going really well, which is great to hear. Great to hear.
I don't know if I love the process because it's my first time, but I guess I'm so intrigued by it, I have to like it at the same time.
Yes.
Because it's new and it's fresh and it's different. And I was just telling a friend of mine today, I don't want to make this interview about me.
No, I'm fascinated.
I was just telling a friend of mine today, like on the show, like you and I talking right now, and like I said, Games, we're talking to Mr. James H. Longmore. Look up some of his material as far as his horror books go. Okay. And I think you guys are going to be fascinated. So that's why we got him on all outlets today, live. But anyway, what I was saying was, like when I'm doing the show, a lot of people, like I'm looking at the comments right now, and people are making comments about what you and I are talking about, things of that nature. But when I'm doing the show on a nightly basis, a lot of fans want me to talk about my career or different things that happen, so on and so forth. Well, there's a lot of people out there, just like yourself, book writers, that are doing podcasts, and they're talking about what they know, which is being authors or being critics or being whatever as it pertains to books and things of that nature. But I'm not one to really get off on yesterday, bro. That is why this book is so intriguing to me, because yesterday was yesterday. I look at that as a chapter in my life. I don't look at that as the book of Stevie Ray.
Well, I mean, it's the book of that chapter of your life. I mean, which people, fans of you, fans of wrestling, are going to be fascinated. That people love the behind the scenes stuff. That they.
I know.
And you say it's not you now, but it's you then, and I think it's good that you're documenting that. For future generations. I think that's fantastic.
Well, in essence, I'm not documenting. No. Everybody knows that story. And if you don't know it, you should know it. But what I'm writing about, like I said, it's been done by everybody. It's been 50, 100 professional wrestlers to write about their lives. I don't want to be another one. You dig? Because the stories are all similar. The stories are all similar, just different names.
Right.
I want to be more like a person like yourself. So when people see your material, they know what to expect. Because your material is not like the next guy. And his material is not like the next guy. That's why you have the Kuntz and the Stephen Kings and all these different people. Their material subjects are the same, but totally different. Because
it's fun.
Everything different. Go ahead.
I'll just say, I mean, a common thread, again, King especially, a lot of his characters are writers, and the golden thing is you write what you know about. We just recently published a terrific horror authoress who's an ex-stripper.
What?
She's an ex-stripper. Her name is Erin Lewis.
She's a writer now?
She's a writer, and her books, we published one that she co-wrote, which is how we got to know her. One she co-wrote with a guy we published before,
Uh-huh.
and two others. And her horror writing is brilliant. It's very dark, very, very dark humor, but again, she throws in what she knows. She knows about being a stripper. So I said, stories based in that world, in that environment. Her characters are, instead of being a writer, so I mean, for me, my life before this was very uninteresting, to be honest with you. I was in sales and marketing in the corporate world. Ooh, it's not something I would, want. Bits get thrown in. I have the odd character who's a salesman, that sort of thing. But someone like yourself, you should think of when you finish this book, write a horror or a thriller or a romance or something in the professional wrestling world. Do that.
I see what you're saying. I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna be honest with you right now, and I've never said this on the show, guys. My life before professional wrestling is way more exciting than my life in professional wrestling. That's something people don't know.
Okay, well, write about that.
Super fascinating. I'm serious, bro. If I wrote about my life and some of the things that happened in my life and some of the things I did in my life before my professional wrestling day, I didn't realize how extraordinary to me my life was until I got into professional wrestling. That was easy.
Oh,
Pro
wow.
wrestling to me was easy. If you see what I'm saying, that was because you know what you're going to be doing from an artistic point of view from week to week, day to day. If you know what I'm saying. But my life before that, brother, it was like a new episode of Gunsmoke.
I remember that show.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying? It was a new episode, like a television show. You got a new episode and you go, okay, what are they going to get into this week, So I look back
brilliant,
I look back on it now and go, wow, man, you didn't realize, So that's interesting that you say that. So that's something to think about. That's something to think about for myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, again, I keep picking on Stephen King, but one thing that Stephen King is incredibly good at is taking the everyday, the normal, and then sticking the horror in it.
Right.
The small town America, that sort of thing, and just sticking vampires in it or a killer clown or whatever, and he's brilliant at that, So you could do that. You take your life and then you can add, although by the sound of it, you wouldn't really have to add an awful lot if it's that if it's that interesting. I would sit and read that, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to be more controversial and interesting at the same time because it's a lot of things dwell within me and I got to get them out. So that's when I start looking at life like now I understand why certain artists are so twisted sometimes in what's going on within their heads, man, because some of this stuff needs to go out like a songwriter or musician. Some of this stuff needs to get out, man, and they're like conflicted within themselves sometimes, And I've never understood that until recent years,
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, you look at. I'm not going to pick on Stephen King again, but look at Paul McCartney. He's still making music. He doesn't need the money.
No,
I mean, he's worth 700, 800 million pounds or whatever.
I think he's over $1 billion.
But he will do it because if he didn't, those tunes would stay in his head and would drive him crazy. Like you say, we have to get that out one way or another. It's got to come out, otherwise it would just, because I used to think, well, why is he still, why? Why is he not just pottering in the garden or just enjoying it? But that is doing what he enjoys. And like you say, writers keep writing. And we will keep writing until the day we die, because we have to, and B, I think if we didn't enjoy it, and like you say about the process, I mean, none of us really enjoy the process.
Right.
It's hard work, and there's some days it is real slog. You have to sit yourself down and just force it and just get something out. And other days it's just, I could just write all day. It's fantastic.
Right.
And you have to take, that's the job, as it were, If we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it. I think we just, I read, whether it's true or not, or an urban myth, I read somewhere many, many years ago that, the writing profession, we write as some of the longest lived people, professional wise, but writers also have one of the highest suicide rates.
Right.
And alcoholism rates. Right. I mean, but it is like you say, you've got to think, again, I'll speak as a writer, right. I'm guessing musicians and artists and all that, the same, but as a writer, you've got all this going on in your head. You are creating worlds, you are creating, and I've even found myself, just as I'm driving, I wonder what so-and-so's doing now. And they, I made him up. He's a character in a book. So they do, and it's almost when you do speak with the writers, they say they plan a character,
right?
And they say, this is my character, and he's this, and he's going to do that, and this is his background, and da da da. But when you start writing that character, they will take on a life of their own, and quite often, by the time you get to the end of the book, your character's totally different.
Wow.
It's not as he's done, the story's pretty much the same as how you planned it or how you saw it.
Right.
But the character, because the character, they grow, they develop as things happen, and they grow in your mind as you get to know. It's like getting to know anyone. As you get to, the more you get to know them, the more you understand them, and you think, well, would he do? He wouldn't do this. Really, I want him to do this, but this character wouldn't do this in this circumstance. So often you will change the story to fit the character in the end, because he wouldn't do that, or he wouldn't say that, and that's not how he'd react, or he would do it this way. And often, the story, if it's character led, it's usually again, Stephen King, his stories, the characters are just, they're like real people.
Unbelievable.
They're like real people. As you read them, they do come to life, which is a phenomenal talent.
Okay, guys, like I said, man, we are right now interviewing Mr. James H. Longmore, and he is an author of some very, very potent horror books. And a lot of these books are available at Hellbound Book Company.
Yeah, you can find them on hellboundbooks.com. They're available on Amazon, in paperback, in Kindle. They're available on Barnes & Noble, again on was it Nook or whatever it's called, and in paperback. Some independent bookstores have started getting them now, or they can get them. They're available. But yeah, Amazon is probably your best bet. Google Hellbound Books, Google my name, and I'm all over Google.
Let me ask you, before we leave, I got to ask you about some of these book titles. Blood and Kisses.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Give me a short synopsis. Blood and Kisses.
Blood and Kisses is my collection of short horror stories. I've had shorts published in anthologies and magazines, whatever, over the years, and I pulled a bunch of them together. And the title, funnily enough, is actually a nod to my mum, who sadly passed away many years ago. She didn't used to like me reading horror, so she used to call it Blood and Thunder. So Blood and Kisses, I just like that contrast, It's you kind of just tell the reader that there's a mixed bag in there. It's all horror stuff, but I've got a sci-fi story in there, and some good blood and guts gore. I've got a ghost story, so there's a bit of everything in there. My one and only poem that I've written and published, and that was because my business partner is also a poet, and she bullied me into it for one of our anthologies. Okay. So yeah, it's just really to let people know there's a bit of everything in there.
And Then You Die. What about that one?
Okay. That is about I don't have to watch my language on the show, obviously.
Oh, no, you can say anything on this show, man.
Okay.
It's the most dangerous podcast. This is what we do.
It's about a fecal demon.
Okay.
It starts with a young businesswoman soiling herself in her car. She's had a heavy night out on Indian food the night before and has an accident in her car, based on a true story. And I'm not going to name names or point fingers.
I would love to hear it. Go ahead.
And a poop comes to life, and there is a story behind that. And the title it comes from the saying "shit happens and then you die."
Wow.
So it's literally about her poo that comes to life as a demon and ruins her life, and etc. etc. And it is one of my favorites because I'm I think at heart I'm still a 12-year-old kid. I still find poop funny.
Well, brother, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's been great.
Hey, and giving us an edification on horror books and how these things are written, how these things get done, who's the fan of them. I think everybody out there is a fan one way or another. But the books, y'all got to realize something out there, y'all. These movies all stem from somebody doing the real legwork and putting a book out there first. You got to know that.
Read the books.
Read the books. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say his name again, Mr. James H. Longmore, author. What I'm trying to be, y'all, an author. One day I might catch up with him. He got about 500 more books in front of me. That's okay.
You will get this. Stick with it, Stevie. Don't give up. Stick with it. That's my advice. Keep writing. Keep doing it.
Okay, James, we appreciate you coming on the show, man. And like I say, I would love to chop it up with you one time and another and pick your brain on a couple of things if you have time. And,
anytime. Absolutely anytime. Yes. Yeah.
I appreciate it, brother. The audience appreciates it. Hey, man, I couldn't get to Loma just said Nancy Drew is cool. Man, get out of here. You're talking about Nancy Drew. That ain't no horror movie. It was horrible, but it wasn't a horror movie. Got that? Man, get out of here. You see how my audience is, James?
Absolutely. They sound like wonderful people. Well, who doesn't love Nancy Drew?
Oh, man. I used to love the Nancy Drew Mysteries, though, man. It was great.
They were good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're great for kids. Yeah.
Hey, man, don't be a stranger. We're going to have to get you back on.
Anytime.
And chop it up some more, brother. That's what we're going to have to do, man.
I'd love to. I would love to.
I appreciate it, man. I'll get back with you. Appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks. And happy Halloween as well.
Give it up for him, y'all. That's Mr. Longmore, brother. See you later, brother.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Mr. Longmore is probably going to come back on the show. Hey, next time he's got a book out, man, let's get him on to promote one of his books that he might be releasing here shortly, man, because I would love to just indulge in that world, man. That's, like I say, guys, I grew up watching a lot of horror stuff, man. They don't make them like they used to, but I'm glad nowadays all the stuff that I used to enjoy as a kid is right at my fingertips now. Right at my fingertips. So when I want to watch Frankenstein meets the werewolf, baby, I ain't got to do nothing but go with my boom, boom, boom. And there it is. But you got to remember something about those movies when I was a kid. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the way I do and I pay attention the way I do. Because back in the day, the action never happened in the movies, but a little here, a little there. So you really had to listen to all the verbiage. You really had to listen to all the dialogue to see exactly where these movies are going and why certain things are happening in the movie. And I'm still like that today. I'm the kind of person that loves to listen and try to figure things out. You know, because the more you know, hey, the better off you are. Why watch it if you didn't understand it? You didn't really watch it. You just looked at it. It's a big difference, man. Real big difference. But hey, man, Sonny Ono will be back next week. Hopefully, And he and I'll chop it up next week on Tokyo Heat. Let me get my phone. So real cool. Appreciate that, man. Loman, don't come in here talking about no damn Nancy Drew. You know, we're talking horror, brother. Horror movies. But hey, man, like I said, appreciate everybody riding along on the train tonight. And like I said, that's what we do sometimes, man. Sometimes we go totally outside the box. And that's just how my mind works, man. I love that conversation with Mr. Longmore. And I got a few more on the hook, man, that we're going to be doing. So, with all that being said, at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is, man. And when it is what it is, it ain't nothing to it but to do it. So,
Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected.
So, after all that, I bid you a good night. Halloween is here. It's only 8 o'clock. I hope no ghosts and goblins are knocking on my door. Because if they do, I have no candy. I do have a couple of bags of potato chips. But that's what I really like, living around in a complex where there are no kids bothering me. Trick or treat! Y'all just don't know how many times I want to open the door and throw them kids out of my yard. But I didn't do it. Only because I had a kid of my own. Boy, those were the days. But with that being said, everybody, if you don't do anything else, you be one.